Now, this actually just happened. They just tweeted this. I saw this on Twitter today. And the deal is this. In light of all this craziness going on, YouTube decided they're going to crack down. YouTube's like, yeah, I think now it's time to crack down. So, here we go. YouTube tweeted this. Due to the disturbing events that transpired yesterday, and given that the election results have now been certified, starting today, any channels posting new videos with false claims in violation of our policies will now receive a strike. All right, here's the tweet. So I actually retweeted it and answered here, and dropped dropped a little bit of truth, because that's the way things need to happen sometimes. And this is my comment on that. YouTube implements Orwell's memory hole. Hashtag free speech, antitrust, Section 230. Time to reform Section 230, or all the technocracy will follow, and the breadth of allowed conversation will narrow dangerously and significantly. And that's the facts. That is what's going on here. And I posted facetiously, and maybe not, actually asking for a friend type of situation in the Discord if you saw it. So what's the new code word for election fraud? Since you're not allowed to say it or talk about it or even think it anymore, it's being erased. Orwell's memory hole. You guys remember what that is? Okay, if you don't, let's talk about it. And interestingly, let's see if there's a parallel here. This is a little bit crazy. A memory hole is any mechanism for the deliberate alteration or disappearance of inconvenient or embarrassing documents, photographs, transcripts, or other records, such as from a website or other archive, particularly as part of an attempt to give the impression that something never happened. The concept was first popularized by George Orwell's 1949 dystopian novel, 1984, where the party's Ministry of Truth systematically recreated all potentially embarrassing historical documents, in effect, rewriting all of history to match the often changing state propaganda. These changes were complete and undetectable. All right, the origins. In 1984, the memory hole is a small chute leading to a large incinerator used for censorship. Straight from the book. In the walls of the cubicle, there were 3 orifices. To the right of the speakwrite, a small pneumatic tube for written messages. To the left, a larger one for newspapers. And in the side wall, within easy reach of Winston's arm, a large oblong slit protected by a wire grating. The last was for the disposal of waste paper. Similar slits existed in thousands or tens of thousands throughout the building, not only in every room, but at short intervals in every corridor. For some reason, they were nicknamed memory holes. When one knew that any document was due for destruction, or even when one saw a scrap of waste paper lying about it, it was an automatic action to lift the flap of the nearest memory hole and drop it in, whereupon it would be whirled away on a current of warm air to the enormous furnaces that were hidden somewhere in the recesses of the building. So you tell me, is there a solid parallel there, or am I reaching here? Is this the actual thought police? Is this where we're at? Is it not allowed to talk about things that may be possibly true? Why do you think they actually showed up at the Capitol yesterday in such large numbers? Why do you think they did? Do you think it was allegiance to the Orange Man? Like I hinted yesterday, do you think it may have been additional frustration with a weak Congress that fails continually? Do you think it may have been frustration with 9 or 10 months of lockdowns and people losing their jobs and businesses and livelihoods, and then getting a measly $600 just after Christmas as a result? Nobody's talking about that. That's not their narrative, right? You can't blame. I retweeted something that somebody did on Twitter that, oh, hey, by the way, Michael Tracy said that the Pelosi and McConnell are in charge of the Capitol Police. You know, they can direct and control these things. So how come nobody's blaming them? I retweet it, somebody instantly unfollowed me because it's right. It's not the narrative. It's just not the narrative. You can't spread blame to more than one person. And very much like in 1984, the one person that they always blamed was the fictitious villain, and his name, Emmanuel Goldstein. So just something to think about, food for thought, and what's really going on here. There's never exactly one particular person to blame for things like this. There's a lot that goes into this. And let's say, for instance, do you think, just as a thought experiment, do you think if CNN basically stood down for 4 years and was just chill, that this would have happened? Do you think that it would have spilled over and become ugly like it did yesterday? Just think about all of the hateful rhetoric that they spun and all the brainwash they did for all that time. Do you think that if they didn't do any of that, let's say you were able to throw CNN in the memory hole, do you think that the other propaganda would have been enough to push this into critical territory? I don't know. I think it's a good question. It's a good thing to think about.